Hello and welcome to Poker Stories, a podcast brought to you by Card Player, the Poker Authority, and hosted by me, Julio Rodriguez. This is episode number 159, and we are once again joined by Scott Seiver. Scott called his shot this summer to win the World Series of Poker Player of the Year race, cashing 17 times for nearly $1.5 million and winning not one, not two, but 3 bracelets to bring his total to 7. Let's get into it.
Boys, we got a bleeder in aisle 6, ladies and gentlemen.
Down my pots, I'm drunk and I'm pissed.
For the best the poker world has to offer, subscribe to Poker Go now.
Your super high roller bowl 7 champion, Daniel Negreanu.
Oh yeah!
Wheels are coming off.
That's the craziest hand I've ever seen.
The World Series of Poker, high stakes poker, no gamble, no future, and so much more.
What was that bite?
Sign up at PokerGo.com using promo code CARDPLAYER to get $20 off the first year of an annual subscription now.
By now, you've heard about Global Poker, one of the fastest growing online card rooms available in the US and Canada today. So what's stopping you from trying it out? Global Poker is a safe and secure social poker site that uses their own patented sweepstakes model. Signing up is easy. You can use Google, Facebook, or just an email address. You can always play for free on Global Poker, but you can also buy gold coins for additional play, which will earn sweeps coins that can be redeemed for real cash to a bank account, Skrill account, or even as a gift card. Get a free 5,000 gold coins when you sign up right now at globalpoker.com.
Poker Stories is an audio series that features casual interviews with some of the game's best players and personalities. Each episode highlights a well-known figure in the poker world and dives deep into their favorite tales, both on and off the felt.
That's right, we are once again joined on the podcast by Scott Seiver, who came into the summer with the question, what happens if I actually try? For most of Scott's nearly 2-decade career, he has mostly focused on high-stakes cash games rather than tournaments. Of course, even with just a casual schedule, he has managed to rack up more than $27 million in total earnings, including numerous high roller titles. But during the summer, cash games always came first. In fact, as you'll hear on this podcast, Scott would often be playing at the Bellagio or Aria and would then just leave his stack on the table while he rushed over to the WSOP for late reg. More often than not, he'd bust and rush right back over to his cash game to continue playing. But every so often, he'd build up a stack and add some more gold to his total. With his 3 bracelets this summer, the 39-year-old Seiver now has 7 overall, which is tied for 7th all time, with greats like John Hennigan, Billy Baxter, and Daniel Negreanu. Which brings me to his legacy. Scott will be 40 next year, making him eligible for the Poker Hall of Fame, which is a topic we discussed in this interview. If you're looking for Scott's poker origin story, you won't find it here. Instead, check out episode number 4, which we recorded back in 2017. This episode, however, is about his dominant summer and ultimately his place in poker history. Anyway, that is enough intro. Here is my conversation with Scott Seiver. I am here with the 2024 World Series of Poker Player of the Year, Mr. Scott Seiver. How are you doing, Scott?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
It's been about a month, right? So, you know, it's not really one of those things, I guess, that has to settle in, right? You kind of knew it was coming, even though it did come down to the wire. But how does it feel now? Did you pick out a photo for your banner?
Not yet. They've been talking to me about a couple options. I haven't decided exactly what yet, but honestly, it feels great. It's like it has settled in, but it's still just like a really good feeling. I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, I know you talked to our poker reporter, Eric Fast. I think it was after you won the first bracelet, and you basically told him that you were coming in more determined than ever. I mean, you've always kind of show up for the World Series. It's your thing. But what was different about this summer?
So almost every summer, always, since at least 2009, so like 15 years or so, when I come for the World Series, I'm playing cash games at the same time. So I'm late registering tournaments at the very last second. maybe I'm playing 20 events, but all of them I'm coming in with like 10, 15 big blinds and just seeing what can happen. This year, I kind of wanted to just like solely focus on tournaments and just be there day in, day out, and just to see what would happen if I really pushed myself.
You know, can I ask you how many events you ended up playing this summer? Did you do an accounting?
I did. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think the number was around 50, but I'm not certain.
Wow. Okay, so is that by far the most you ever played? You never had one summer where you grinded that hard?
I don't think I've ever had over 20 before.
Wow.
Maybe.
I would have guessed you did over 20 a couple times for sure.
Basically, I always played the 15 10Ks that there are, and then like 4 or 5 other tournaments here and there. But then also, like I said, a lot of those 10Ks would be me registering like level 6 or level 8 and just trying to spin it up and like leaving my chips at a cash table in case if I bust to go straight back there and play.
You really did that often? Like just left them there?
Oh, every time, like literally every day for years.
What, does somebody just play over you in that situation, or how does it work?
You're allowed 90 minutes to 2 hours before you get picked up. So I would just, run from Bellagio to Paris, or before then take a quick cab to the Rio and just try and spin up in an hour as big a stack as I could. And if not, just go back to my game. So it was a different mindset than I had this year.
It is interesting, though, because you've always been a WSOP fan, right? I remember when we did our first interview, you said that you wanted a bracelet more than anything when you were growing up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I have, like, really great childhood memories. I guess not childhood, like, late teens or whatever, of watching the World Series on ESPN with my dad. I remember being, like, 16. I remember watching, like, Varconi and Moneymaker and just being like, I want to be that one day. And so, yeah, the World Series always really drove me in that mindset.
The first bracelet came. We've done a little bit of a history on you before, so if anybody wants to go back, check out how you found the game. You have some great stories about there was a guy who took you under his wing, basically, and forced you into the life of professional poker. That's a great story you could find on the Poker Stories podcast back in the day, or check out Art and Justin Young's Table One podcast a few days ago, where you recapped it as well. Good stuff. But I just want to recap for people who maybe haven't listened to that. You won in 2008. The 5K no limit hold'em is $750,000, and then there was a 10-year gap, right, between that first bracelet and the second. Is that what you're talking about? You just weren't grinding?
Yeah, I would say for most of those 10 years, I was playing like literally 8 tournaments a year or so, and then like maybe 2 of the years I got to 15, but basically played almost none at all.
And did mixed games come into play a little later in that run?
Well, I was playing mixed game cash starting around 2011 or so, was when I really started playing mixed games cash. So I was like dabbling in some mixed game tournaments right around that time, but pretty quickly, like, they were just very equally overlapped. As I grew as a mixed game player, I just switched to playing a lot more cash instead of the tournaments.
Yeah. Do you find that your game translates over? Is it the same game when you're playing, whether it was Bobby's Room before, or Table One, or one of the big games, or even Rail Heaven back in the day, and then you take that to tournament play? It seems like your aggression will help you more in tournament play, right?
I think the difference is less the fact that it's cash games versus tournaments, although there's definitely a large part of that. But I think the bigger aspect, at least for me, is you have to play very differently when you're playing with the same people day in and day out, and you have to be able to adjust on the fly much faster when you're playing with many new people every couple of hours every single day. In my cash game, there's 12 to 14 people, and 7 or 8 of us are playing every day. So you just see the same people every single day. So you're really building up, how do I beat these exact people instead of how am I just beating the game? As opposed to in tournaments, you have to really adjust on the fly, like as fast as you can.
What would you think you're better at? Can you do a quick read on an amateur and size them up pretty well at the series? Is that more of your strength, or do you like really doing the deep dive on people and trying to find those 1 or 2 leaks in their game that you can kind of punish?
I would say personally, objectively, I am better at playing against the same person day in and day out. But relative to the field, I think I'm much better in the tournament mindset because I think that being able to put a read on a person as quickly as possible is one of the hardest things you can do in poker. And I believe most people honestly are pretty terrible at it because it is so unbelievably difficult. But I think I'm pretty good at it, which then gives me a big leg up.
Yeah. You've always been very confident in your abilities. I think I remember I was talking to you. We were at some brewery or something with a mutual friend of ours, Sean Patrick Green, and I was talking to you about some games you were playing at the time, and I was like, I remember just casually saying, "Well, who's the best player in the game?" And you were like, "Of course, it's me, by far. It's not even close." And I was like, "You need that mentality, right?"
Absolutely. I was going to say there's definitely a mindset for the specific games I'm playing where almost everyone has to think they're the best in that game. Otherwise, they're not going to make it. Like, part of the beauty of mixed games is everyone has a subset of the games you're playing that they can feel they are the actual best in. Yeah. And that's what creates the whole beauty of the concept, because no one's wrong. No one's even deluding themselves. Everyone is the best at the thing they are the best at, and they get to play it. And then it's all about just trying to understand or comprehend, oh, if I'm fourth best at this game, is that a better fourth best than this other person is at their fourth best game, et cetera, et cetera.
How many games are you normally playing in these rotations?
We normally play 11, usually between 10 and 12.
Okay, so the standard 10 plus a couple like Badoosie kind of thing?
We don't really play those anymore. Those kind of stopped, at least in our game, probably 7 years ago, just because they're too slow. But we'll add some other big bet games, like we'll either play pot limit triple draw sometimes, or deuce to 7 razz, or some other variant like that. But it's a pretty standard mix, all things considered.
Do you guys play those with the big bet games with a cap at all?
Yeah, we play with the cap to try and keep the relative sizes of the games equal. Otherwise, it's too big an advantage or disadvantage for people that are better at one form of poker than the other. So we try to balance out the value of any individual game.
Are there any like big high stakes, no limit games at that size anymore? Or is it all mixed, outside of Triton, whatever?
Honestly, there's tons of everything. I think they're just harder to find. I think they've been scattered as opposed to more easily seeable and obtainable, but they definitely exist everywhere. I would say the main form of poker, especially outside of America, is still no limit hold'em. So you have big bet games on a global scale at very high stakes still, but there's something very beautiful and pure about the nosebleed mixed game scene, where it's everyone that came to it truly believes that like this is the way to like show your all around talent in poker.
That matters to you, right? Like the legacy, what you, how you were viewed by your peers.
Of course, I think that at the end of the day, all we have is like what we leave as an indelible mark to others. And so if I come into this game, I can have fun, I can enjoy it, I can make a living off it, but what I would really want is to be remembered for what I did in it. And so yeah, that matters to me.
Well, that's not the case with everybody. There are a lot of people out there who they go to play mid stakes every single day, kind of anonymously. They're winners. They provide for their family, and then they go home and they get no love because they don't win tournaments, and they're not playing the biggest games and they're not flashy. But they come in, they clock out, and they clock in, they clock out, and that's what.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that's beautiful. But at least for me, I would say I am blessed enough that I don't need to view this as a job in that mindset, whereas that is someone who is making a living and having a fun time with their job. But I view this much more on the competitive aspect as like a sport as opposed to a job. So I care more about like where I rank in the competition versus others, because I've been lucky enough to get past having to really force myself day to day to view it as a job.
Do you think you would still do it if it was anonymous? Like if there was no publicity for it, you just you win some tournaments, but no one takes your picture, no one writes it up. Would you still do it?
100%. That part doesn't really matter to me too much. It mostly matters for myself. I don't really care about the fame or publicity standpoint. I care about being able to stack myself up against others. It's all a personal journey for me. That said, the one thing I wouldn't do is if I didn't like playing anymore, I wouldn't. People ask me that one all the time, and like, I love playing poker more than anything. And the moment that stopped, I would just also stop.
Yeah, let's go back to the World Series. 2018, you won the 10K Limit Hold'em Championship. The next year, you take down the 10K Razz, and then the pandemic hits. It seemed like right before that, you were playing all the high rollers, taking stuff down to the Poker Go studio. What was it like coming out of the pandemic? And obviously, you played the series, but maybe not so much all the other events or traveling as much.
Yeah, it was a big change. It was, at the time, by far the longest I had ever gone without playing poker. I had never really gone, honestly, probably over 6 weeks in the 15 plus years I had been playing of no poker at all. So to go immediately to about like 20 months of not a single hand of poker was a huge adjustment for me. But it honestly, it re-solidified how much I love the game and how much I enjoyed being back. I felt like I gained a lot of gratitude for it.
Oh, so when you come out, you were guns blazing then. You were ready to get back out there.
Absolutely. I was chomping at the bit.
2022, $2,500 freeze out, another $300,000. And then, coming into this year, you're 39 years old, which is important for a few reasons. But this is what your goal was, right? Coming into this summer, you have to make your mark before the Poker Hall of Fame eligibility kicks in, and you did it.
Yeah, there's something just very satisfying about getting to be goal-oriented, and you would think that in poker that happens often, but it kind of doesn't, especially at cash games, because like you were saying about clocking in and clocking out, whether anonymous or not, so much of what my day-to-day in poker is just putting in the hours and clocking in and clocking out. And there's something really beautiful I found about setting a very difficult, obviously very unlikely to happen goal for myself, and then working as hard as I could for 2 straight months to try to achieve that. Like, I derived a lot of joy just from that journey.
You take it, you go in, you win 3 bracelets in one summer, the 10K Omaha Ed or Better Championship. How's your Omaha game, by the way?
It was good. It was good enough to win that tournament. I would say it's one of my weaker games, though, overall. But turns out it was enough those 4 days, and that's what matters.
Is it fair to call you a closer? Some people get that label in poker, and some people just, they have a bunch of second and thirds. But it seems like when you get down there, you can maneuver in a way that gets you out on top more often than not.
I would say yes, and not to disparage others, but in general, over the years, what I would say is it's less that I am a closer. That mostly doesn't exist. The way it exists is to not be a choker. And 90% of people are chokers. So then the 10% that aren't look like closers relatively. But in reality, you're playing for a lot of money, especially in the tournament scene. It's lots of people playing for big money where they don't always every day. They're playing with weird tournament ICM pressure type things in games that never have tournaments run for them. Everyone's in new spots, and I always feel that I just do well when other people are feeling a lot of pressure because I pretty much just stay calm in all situations.
You stay calm in all situations, even heads up for a bracelet?
I would say internally, I'm like rife with emotion. I'm just like, oh my God, please don't blow this. Don't let this one slip away. But I feel that I do a good job at separating out the emotional hangups that I feel versus what it translates to on the card table.
You take that one down and you let everybody know, I'm here to make my mark. I want to win the POY, and I really want to, put my stamp on this before next summer when you become Hall of Fame eligible. Then you take down the $1,500 razz. What are you thinking at that point? Like, oh, wow, it's happening.
Yeah, that was the point where I was like, wow, this could really happen. It was very funny because I purposely didn't play. I think it was the 50K no limit. I forget what it was, but there was some high roller I purposely didn't play so I could play the 1500 razz instead, because I was telling people in advance. I just had this like feeling that this was a tournament that I very likely could win, and so I just played the 1500 razz instead. But yeah, that was basically
that's
the
a
moment.
weird feeling, right?
Yeah, very, very much so. But
That's,
I was just like,
that's a non-ego driven situation, right? Because there's a lot of people, a lot of high rollers who couldn't do that. They couldn't put themselves in the best spot. The ego's too big. They have to play that 50K, you know?
I've also, I mean, I wouldn't even put myself above that. That's also been me in my entire career until this summer. I think that's what helped me in advance tell myself, you are doing this, just push yourself and see what happens. Because every year for my career, I've chosen the more ego, the more monetary path at the cost of the tournaments. And that's okay. I'm happy with those choices. But if I told myself this year, I want to just navigate these waters in a way that felt right to me, I was just going to do it and sacrifice whatever I thought it was for it.
You won, I think, 100 buy-ins in that tournament?
Yeah.
Is that how you think about it, you know, when it comes to results, or is it $140,000? You know what I mean? Like, do you treat, is that like 6 buy-ins and high rollers? How do you view money?
Difficultly is the answer. I feel anyone that has played high stakes or nosebleed poker for a while has a very detached view of money, or at best strong cognitive dissonance when it comes to it. To me, it's just a number and I'm happy with it, of course, but like I don't view it in terms of buy-ins, and I'm not like, oh, this is only X buy-ins here or X buy-ins there. It's just like, oh, it's 150K and I'm thrilled to have it, but I don't really view where it came from. Although I should, that makes sense. It's the intelligent way to be like, oh, it's this many buy-ins that I've achieved. But no, my brain doesn't really do that.
Does that cognitive dissonance like translate or transfer over to your everyday life? Are you the worst shopper, just Instacarting everything and getting everything?
Yeah. But what I try to tell people when I talk about this is that it's very purposeful, from having to overcome similar like brain traps that many other high stakes players had when we were all very young. I remember back in college having friends who would be playing like high stakes poker and keeping track of all the results. And they would be like, okay, I know when I play, I'm making, let's say $800 an hour, just making up a number. It would be hard for them to want to say go to the movies, because they would be like, oh, it's costing me $2,000 to see a movie right now because I could be playing poker instead. And it sounds ridiculous, but this was an unbelievably common mindset where there's just the opportunity cost in life of, if you're doing activity X, you aren't doing activity Y. And activity Y can make you thousands of dollars an hour. So it makes it be like, well, how could I see a movie? How could I get dinner with friends? How could I do all these other things? And it took a lot of people actively training themselves to be like, you know what? I'm happy to spend $2,000 to see a movie with my friends. That's the whole point of having the money in the first place. So I think some of that spills over to change the way many, many high stakes players view the concept of money just going forward in their lives.
That is interesting, though, that you refer to it as spending $2,000 to an opportunity cost.
Yeah,
you know, to go see a movie. I remember talking to Justin Bonomo about this very subject. That he basically he was treating every interaction in life like looking for the optimal play, as opposed to just enjoying the non-poker moments. You know, the way any normal human.
You just can't do that. That also just comes from many poker players being so analytical that they have, quote unquote, solved via analysis their job, and then they're looking to solve life. But life just doesn't work that way. And once you decouple the concept of having to overanalyze every aspect of your life, you can just make the choices that feel obviously correct without having to stress or wonder about like the money or the analysis on why you do it.
Poker Stories is brought to you in part by Resorts World Las Vegas and their beautiful 30-table poker room. Experience the thrill of the game where high stakes meets luxurious ambiance. Located right on the Las Vegas Strip and featuring free parking for Genting Rewards members, Resorts World is a $4.3 billion property that offers world-class gambling, dining, and entertainment options. To learn more, visit rwlasvegas.com. Resorts World Las Vegas. Rule the game.
Hi everyone, this is two-time World Poker Tour champion Jonathan Little, and I want to tell you about my training site, pokercoaching.com. Poker coaching is the place to be if you want to increase your poker skills and learn to crush the games. It's the only place to quickly increase your win rate with active learning, so you can achieve your full poker potential without having to hire an expensive coach. Right now, podcast listeners can score a free membership by visiting pokercoaching.com/cardplayer and get access to top training tools like our interactive hand quizzes, our 7, 14, and 30-day challenges, and a roster of elite coaches such as Matt Affleck, James Romero, Burt DraftGanger Stevens, Michael Acevedo, and dozens of others. Again, that's pokercoaching.com/cardplayer to get your free membership right now.
So, you win the 1500 razz. Then comes up the 10K deuce to 7 lowball draw championship. No limit deuce. It is probably the most prestigious of the mixed games, I would say, of the 10K mixed games slate. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree. No Limit Single Draw was the game of poker before No Limit Hold'em took off, basically. No Limit Single Draw was the premier No Limit game. It was the premier high-stakes poker game. If high-stakes poker happened, it was No Limit Single Draw. And it's just a good game. So it's the combination of an older, the quintessential game that people played, and a game that's still played today. Like, 100 plus years ago, 5-card stud was the game, but that game has fallen out of favor for obvious reasons, so it wouldn't have any panache to it. But No Limit Single Draw was the game of games for many years, so the fact that it's still here, it holds a lot more beauty and sway, I feel.
Can you talk a little bit about, I remember talking to David Baker, who was very, very good at that game, and he was trying to explain to me what his edge was in it, and it had to do, it's just a lot of reading people, isn't it?
Yeah. So much of the game is that the way I've described it to other people before is that in almost every form of poker, when you're bluffing, in reality you're semi-bluffing. Like, say I'm going all in with a flush draw and a couple overcards. Of course, I'm a little scared to go all in, but there's always that like comfort and confidence that you could win the hand. No Limit Single Draw, you have to peel your cards, look at them, go, oh shit, there's no chance that I can possibly win this hand, and then still run a huge bluff. And like that might happen in No Limit Hold'em once every couple hours, if not even less, where you're running a big river all-in bluff. In No Limit Single Draw, it might happen 5 times an hour, 6 times an hour to you. You just have to confidently and constantly be looking at cards that are terrible for you, knowing you're going to lose a hand, and then bluffing. So no matter how good you are at poker, people give off emotions in these spots. People feel themselves a slave to what their eyes see. And I feel being a good single draw player is just like understanding a person as they are looking, as they are playing a hand.
Do you have any mental tricks for yourself to make sure that you're not giving off those kind of tells?
Honestly, for me, I've always just been so random that I hope everything else gets meshed in the noise. Like, I go the opposite path of everyone else. Everyone else tries to remove all tells, be a stone wall, be as calm and serene as possible. Where I've chosen to go the opposite path, where I'm just constantly mid-conversation, talking to people, yucking it up, trying to be as casual and relaxed as possible, whether I have a good hand or a bad hand. And that lets me feel most comfortable. So if I'm then giving anything away, it could just be a normal hand gesture that I would do when telling a story anyways, for example. So I always just try to maintain who I am outside of a poker table during a hand as well, very much.
You take that one down, your third bracelet of the summer. Hasn't been done very often. What are you thinking at this point? I'm the greatest?
No. But I was really, really wanting a fourth. But But
that's right. And you had plenty of chances at it. There was a couple online deep runs, and then you made the final table of the 25K horse as well. Even made a little tweet saying that today was the day you're going to break Phil Ivey's record, right?
Yeah, it was mostly a tongue-in-cheek tweet because I started off with today is the most important day of the World Series because it was day one of the final table, the World Series main final table.
Yeah.
So I was like, today is the most important day in, poker history because I'm going to win my 4th bracelet, ...
And, passing Ivy would have felt good, right?
Yeah, but, it is what it is.
Although he, stole some headlines this summer.
Absolutely.
Do you consider yourself kind of old? You're right on the line, right? You're 39. So there's a lot of people in your age group, who are new school, and then there's a lot of people in your age group who are old school. It's kind of like the dividing line there. And I would say you're more of an old school type of gambler.
I would agree with that. I would say right around my age, or maybe 1 year younger, is the modal most common age, at least of high stakes poker. So it's very much everyone that is older than me is old school, and everyone that is 2 years younger than me is new school. And then there's 30 or 40 of us that have always just tried to straddle that line.
And how do you feel that you're old school? Just because you're willing to gamble it up and maybe not necessarily take the most GTO move?
Yeah, it's that, and it's also just a literal thing. I sit at a table, and I am often the oldest or second oldest at a table these days, which is wild to me to think about in those terms. But yeah, it happens all the time. But
wow, I would not have guessed that.
Oh yeah,
in those high stakes games you're talking about.
No, I was thinking more at the World Series, but even at lower stakes tournaments, when I was playing a random 600 or a 1500 or a 2500, it would be 7 guys age 23 all the time, basically.
Do you feel like the old man at the table now? Because it's we're trapped in our 40-year-old bodies, but we still feel 15 forever, don't we?
Yeah, and I assume that'll happen when we're 70. Also, I assume that just never changes.
That's funny. Let's see here. Let's talk about the POY formula because they did make some changes this year. They capped the amount of caches you could have. I think they're only allowed 1 online, maybe 2 online.
1 online, 10 total.
Right. So it no longer could you Sean Deebit and that's not fair because he does play the high stakes. No longer could you Chris Ferguson it and basically rack up a bunch of min caches and win the POY. Did that change your strategy at all? What you were going to play?
Yeah. Honestly, it was the literal reason I did this at all. If they hadn't changed the structure, I would have just played cash games all summer. Oh. That was kind of the main input. Not the main, but one of the main green flags to allow me to think that I'm actually going to do this, what I was thinking about it. Because without it, you just kind of can't play poker. To win the POY, you have to sacrifice tens and tens of thousands of dollars in the old system. You have to purposefully multi-table a bunch of tournaments. You have to blind out when you get super deep in big field events. You have to do all these things that to me, I feel are antithetical to the game of poker. And I just don't have in me to do. So when they changed the system and I was like, oh, in this system, you just have to go out and win. Then I was like, okay, now I'm kind of intrigued by this because I think I could go out and win.
Go out and win, and you won 3 times, and yet it still was close.
Yeah, but I would say multiple people had some of the best World Series runs in history, all in the same World Series.
Do you have any criticism for the current formula, or what things you'd like to see changed?
There are always things one can nitpick. I think there's only one low-hanging fruit issue, and that issue is the way the points are structured is that if you get top 3 or 4% in a tournament, you get 200 points. That's the bonus to get to 200 points. And then the points don't go up until 9th place in a tournament where you get 250. However, in tournaments where there are fewer than 100 people, for example, or any tournament where 4% of the field it doesn't come before 9th, you get the bigger point total. So in these 50 and 60 person high rollers, you get 250 points for getting 8th or 9th place, which is, not even 10% of the field down. So there's a massive point bonus for min cashing a high roller. And it's not the fact that the high rollers are worth so much. That's okay. Like, there's a giant multiplier for the high rollers, and I'm okay with that. But it should be the same thing, in my opinion, of you don't get this point multiplier until you're through 4% of the field, as it is for every other tournament. So in these, 80-person tournaments, the giant multiplier should go to the top 4 people instead of the top 9. And that's all. And that would just, I think, single-handedly fix everything.
Who do you think had the second best summer behind you? Was it Michael Rocca, who finished second, or Al Smith, who finished third? There's a couple double bracelet winners. I think 3 double bracelet winners.
These things are so hard to compare. For me, I think the 2 other best performances were Osmus and Racner. Jeremy just final tabled everything, and John Racner did also. And both of them in very large field events as well, randomly. Jeremy in a 1500 shootout got, I think, 3rd, and Racner got like 3rd or 4th in like a 5,000 person low stakes no limit or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So
you need one of those big field runs, it feels like.
You just need to win. Like, in general, if it wasn't for several of these all-time wild performances, when I was looking at the score, the basic concept was someone's going to win 2 bracelets. That person is, 99% to win POY. Obviously, this year was the 1% where, like, Osmus could have done it otherwise. But basically, it was like, okay, you need to win 2. So my goal was to not care about points at all and just try to win 2 bracelets. And then once that happened, then care about points, which I liked because I wanted to just play to win anyways.
How did you feel when you fell just short in that 25K horse? Seemed like you're pretty pissed about it, even though, it was a great summer.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my competitive spirit. I'm pissed about everything, but, it lasts for 30 minutes, and then, like the tide, it washes out, and I'm okay. But, yeah, no, I really wanted that one, obviously. It was a great final table of, like, world-class players and people I've been friends with for many years. So it was also just a really fun atmosphere. But, I wanted it, but we all do, because the people that make those things are the people that really want it.
39 years old, you're turning 40 in April, and you will be eligible for the Hall of Fame. Hopefully, they're going to make some changes to the induction process for next year. But I'm not holding my breath, because I've been writing op-eds about it for 5 years, and they're not listening.
Yeah, exactly. They seem to not care. Which is okay. Everyone has their own methodology, and that's perfectly fine.
So you're okay with them running it with a single entry every year, or single induction?
I would change it personally, but that's just my personal opinion, and I don't really hold it too much against them, to be honest. If it was solely up to me, I think there are 2 paths I would choose. Either I would do multiple voting process and do like a 75+% of the vote thing, similar to baseball, or I would do 2 people that were players and up to 1 person. Well, up to 2 people that were players and up to 1 person that is a founder / pusher of the game each year. That's the one I would prefer. So you could have a maximum of 3 people. Probably most years you have 1, sometimes 2, but you have the option for 3. Like, personally, I think Isai Scheinberg should 100% be in there. But I think it seems very unlikely he will be, given as the years have gone by and as more people are just coming in that definitely will get in also.
That's the problem. It's that logjam, right? Like, you're turning 40, but so are like everybody else from the early online era days. All those people are turning 40, and how do you say no to Jason Kuhn when he hits 40, or like any of those guys with 40 million in earnings or whatever it is. So it seems like next year would be the best opportunity for you, given, coming off of this good summer.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not that worried about it. I feel, maybe it's hubris, but I feel pretty confident it'll happen. It's inevitable. It's for sure. Yeah,
inevitable,
I'm not really stressing it too much.
Because of this logjam, if it doesn't happen next year, it could be a wait.
Well, it's a very complicated question for all the people behind. It's about, maintaining over the course of the game, and the public eye seems to matter a lot. Like, even though some people might quote unquote be better at poker or have done more, there's others that, in my opinion, are more likely or more capable of being in the Hall that I can't imagine saying no to. Like, in a couple of years, I don't think anyone should ever say no to Jason Mercier, for example, guy who's done it all at all stakes from age 18 in the public eye, on TV, in cash games, as a sponsored pro, anything you can think of, he's done. Who's going to say no to that? I think it's very hard to say no to Sean Deeb. Very similar concept, even though he hasn't done the cash games really, just like a tour de force of the World Series. So I don't know. I think it ends up probably being tougher for people like a Jason Kuhn or a Phil Galfond, who in my Hall would absolutely be in, but in the way it's currently structured, I think are behind other people.
I made a list of people I thought should be in the Hall of Fame today. They're just good enough. Their resumes are solid. They deserve to be in. I made this list last year, and it was 80 people long.
Yeah.
Your numbers aren't similar, I'm guessing.
No. My number is probably like 12. I think
12. Okay.
Yeah, I think there are lots of great players that shouldn't be in the Hall, and that's okay too. I think specifically the concept of the Hall of Fame for poker, as the way it's been structured over the years / couple decades now, is that it's not just about being a great player. It's about being a great player that has like stood the test of time. So I think you just have to have been like a high stakes pro in what you're doing for 15, 20 years minimum, without ever having like had to dip down. I think it also involves being able to show a wide range of talent, both on the like public and personal side, to like be good enough to be able to win these big tournaments when you need to, but to be known enough by your peers to be a good cash game player or elsewise. I think you need a much more well-rounded concept than just, oh, this guy was the best and Nolan Hold'em for 4 years.
Right. You got to be a complete player, you know.
Like, there are dozens and dozens of very, very good players that are big winners, but I don't think that makes the Hall.
And how do you feel about, Hold'em specialists versus people who know all the games? Could a strictly Hold'em specialist make the Hall?
Sure, but I think it would have to be a pretty, like, extremely strong resume. Like, in my opinion, the only ones that should make the Hall or could make the Hall in the next couple of years would be, like, say, Andrew Roble and maybe Isaac Haxton. Like,
right.
To me, Isaac has done so much both in tournaments and cash games for 20 plus years now and is known enough in public for it. And Andrew Roble basically has single-handedly pushed and advanced high stakes no limit hold'em to like a level never before seen before. And something like that I feel is very Hall of Fame worthy, because like it's the mark you leave on the game after you left, more than just, oh, what was your talent? How good are you at knowing what to 3-bet? To me, that stuff means a little bit less than the mark left.
Yeah, and Roble's one of those guys who has been, popping his head up a little bit more lately. So you wonder if maybe he's trying to make a splash, get some attention, because those, anonymous big high stakes cash games are not, the general public doesn't know about them, but they do watch, the poker ghost streams and
of course, but I also think the general public shouldn't be voting on the Hall of Fame in the same way that it's like the baseball writers of America. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't let the writers have a say anymore. I used to have a Hall of Fame vote myself, and they took it away. Now it's just the players and this secret committee that kind of determine everything. It'd be nice if it was in the hands of the writers. The writers had a little bit of a say.
Yeah, it would be nice if there was slightly more for the media and if there was a lot more for people currently in the Hall. Because obviously it's a self-selecting thing, but like of people that care about the Hall of Fame that would have strong and good opinions on this, like I think Brian Rast might have the best. And like I would be okay with just being like, okay, people should just listen to what Brian Rast says now. And like he has enough inside knowledge that if he says something, and even if the public doesn't know it, you all should just trust him. Like stuff like that, I feel gets to a certain point where that's the only way to have a true Hall of Fame.
The players, for the most part, there's biases and everyone has their friends, but they know who the real stars are. Yeah. All right. Well, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, when David Oppenheim made the Hall of Fame, I'm sure lots of people in the public were like, "Who is this guy?" But everyone that knows is just like, "Oh, he's the best player of the past 25 years."
Yeah, everyone who's been in Bobby's room knows him very well.
Yes.
All right. What did you splurge on?
Nothing yet, to be honest. But
you didn't treat yourself?
No. Honestly, I don't really view it like that. I use the treats for when I'm doing badly. That way, I tell myself, "Oh, I better buy myself something nice before I piss all the money away gambling."
Yeah, retail therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything crazy big? What are you into these days?
No.
What are your hobbies other than making money at the table?
Honestly, that's a pretty good hobby. I've been playing a lot of tennis recently. I've been going to like a ton of concerts the past few months. I've really been like enjoying live music. Like, honestly, a lot of this has felt like still a reaction from COVID, where I'm just trying to make up for so much lost time. So I've been like really enjoying like live art shows, even live. A 1,000 live concerts I've been to, but just all like big crowd, big energy places has been like really fueling me recently.
What have you seen recently?
I saw LCD Sound System not so long ago. I saw this great band L'Imperatrice recently. I don't know. I was looking at I saw something like 30 shows in the last 2 months or something like that.
What?
Yeah, or maybe not last 2 months. The 2 months before the World Series.
I average like a concert a month, and I thought that was pretty high.
No, so I had always done that, and then I decided to actively try and do like 2 a week or something, and I've been really enjoying it. Or I'll just pick a random band that I've never heard of because I see they're playing, and I'll check them out. And if I hate it, I just dip, and that's okay. But I've been really enjoying just putting myself out there for tons of music.
Yeah, I'm the same. My daughter plays a bunch of music now, and so I'm just constantly taking her to concerts. And
every time you post a video of her shredding with someone, it's the coolest ever.
We're looking forward to When We Were Young 3 again. That's nice. Like all of my music put together. I don't know about you, but for me, that was like my scene, the pop punk scene.
Yeah, I was like I felt a touch older than that scene. So like I still like a decent amount of it, but I was a little bit more like indie rock style before then. What's your dream concert then? Like the Strokes. Seeing the Strokes was like my best. I've seen them a few times, and it has ranged from like a kind of tough experience to the best show of my entire life.
So is that the genre then? Like, what is that, garage rock?
Yeah, I would say like garage rock or indie rock or alt rock, what they would call the New York like trash rock scene of the early 2000s was like very much my scene.
Do you play any instruments yourself?
No, I mean I used to 1,000 years ago, but not anymore.
We had a question here. If you were in a band or another musical act, what instrument would you try to play, and what would your band name be?
Okay, I would play bass guitar. Because you need the foundation, but I don't want to be the front man, but I want the real fans of the band to be like, wow, he's the glue.
Yeah, exactly. Without him, they'd be shot.
Yeah, exactly. I only want the real fans to even know my name.
There you go. That's not the best position to be in a famous band, because you can still go to the grocery store and no one will harass you.
Exactly. It seems like the best of all worlds.
Speaking of being noticed, do you ever get stopped in public?
I would say when I'm in Vegas, I probably get stopped about like once a week, and when I'm elsewhere, I get stopped about like once a month. And honestly, that's like a nice amount for me. I like that.
What do you like to hear? Do you want it to be, oh, you're that poker guy?
No. I mean, like I would be happy never getting noticed, but I've always thought like being like an A-list celebrity has to be hell on earth. Like being Nicolas Cage and not being able to go to the grocery store or something. You know what I mean? Like that sounds terrible. But like if someone says hi, every now and then to me. Like, I like that. It's like, oh, nice. Like, people know who I am.
Nicolas Cage, my wife served him at a restaurant once. Said he was a good tipper.
Nice. I love to hear that. Love to hear that.
I mean, I guess you'd have to be to lose all that money.
No, that's why I respect him more.
Generous.
He lost all the money and still willing to tip the servers. Tip your
That's how
servers,
he did it.
everyone.
He's over tipping himself to the poorhouse. I don't know if I've asked you this before, but who are your 4 players on poker's Mount Rushmore?
Ooh, good.
You
question.
could say yourself. You have that confidence.
No, I wouldn't though. Doyle Brunson for sure. I don't know. I would really have to think on this one. Like,
You spent a lot of hours with Doyle, right? At the table?
Yeah, many hours. I don't know. It would have to really take. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I was just saying, in your interactions, your clashes over the years, who do you think got the best of who?
I would say I probably got the best of him, but I remember one of the first times I ever played in Bobby's room. We were playing the mixed game, and it came up to no limit hold'em, and it folded to me in the small blind, and I had 10 deuce offsuit, and Doyle was in the big blind, and I was like, I'm gonna beat Doyle Brunson with this hand, and I just blasted off my stack over flop turn river with absolutely nothing, and he just like snap called all streets, including the all in on the river, and I showed the 10 deuce off and was like, I just wanted the story that I could beat you with 10 deuce, and he said something like, millions of people have tried that versus him before. I'm not the first.
Yeah, he probably has it in his brain. Like, there's always a chance it's 10 deuce. It's like it's like 7 deuce, but for him, it's constantly on.
Exactly. So if quote unquote even I did it, I'm sure people must have done it all the time to him.
I wonder if the average bluffing frequency against Doyle was slightly higher because of that fact.
Exactly. I wonder that. I bet it probably was.
Yeah, and does it happen with other players too? I mean, I guess. Maybe no one else has a hand like that. That's famous, but the Robbie, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
We got some random questions to finish it out here. Do you have a celebrity doppelganger, or people have told you look like somebody?
In my 20s, I would get Seth Rogen all the time, but not anymore, really.
Yeah, I don't see the Seth Rogen. Maybe back then.
I mean, when I was in college and I had like a bigger fro, it was much more apparent.
Who was your celebrity crush growing up?
Ooh, probably like when I was like a kid, it was like Daniel Fishel, if that was her name, Topanga.
Oh yeah, Topanga.
That was probably my first, like, as a kid, like, oh my god, she's perfect.
For me, it was I liked Topanga a lot, but I think Kelly Kapowski was.
Oh yeah, of course. Also, obviously, that's the Mount Rushmore right there.
That's Who's the other two? All right. If you could pick the entertainment for the Super Bowl halftime show, who would you choose? And it's entertainment; doesn't have to be a singer necessarily.
I don't know. I have such a negative view on the World Series. I'm sorry, on the Super Bowl halftime show that I feel I would never force any artist I really like to do it. It seems so terrible. I don't know. They should just replay Prince every year. Just have on the screen the Prince performance.
You're not gonna beat his performance in the rain. You're
Correct.
not going to beat that. Sure.
No one's ever beating that. They should just put it on the Jumbotron and we can just rewatch it every Super Bowl, and I'm okay with that.
What's your most prized possession?
Honestly, I would say I don't really have one.
There's nothing you're running towards if the house is on fire?
Nah.
Where do you keep the bracelets?
I give them out to family members. My dad has a couple. My grandfather has a couple. I have, I think, one or two, etc.
One or two? You should really keep track. You only have 7. It's not hard to keep track of all 7. It's a lot.
I gotta do an inventory at some point.
So do you collect anything?
No. Honestly, and not that I put it down, but I've never really understood the concept of collecting things to me. Like, I enjoy getting things to use them. I don't want to have things just to have them.
That goes against my hoarding mentality for sure. I'm the kind of guy who if my daughter buys a toy, and like there's 7 other color variations, I'll buy all of them. I'm
Nice.
like, I have to have everything. I'm a completist.
Well, that way, then you know which one you liked best, at least.
Of course, yeah. Then we'll have it. Let's see here. We have a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go. Oh, what's the embarrassing story that your parents or relatives used to tell others about you? It's good if you don't have one.
I kind of don't have one, to be honest.
You always made the right moves growing up.
The only one that comes to mind, but it's not even really embarrassing, I would say, is that the story my parents like to tell other people for whatever reason is when I was in like preschool. I was 4 years old. I came home and I told my parents that I had made a new friend in my preschool, and they're like, "Oh, that's great. What's his name?" And I said, "Oh, it's this kid DeBrickashaw. Him and I are like good friends now." And I was a like slow speaker when I was very young. And my parents thought I had like made up this name or I couldn't pronounce it. And I was trying to pronounce like Derek or something like that. And I just kept being like, no, there's this like kid DeBrickashaw, like him and I are like best friends. Like you got to meet him. And it wasn't until like a parent teacher conference where they like went to like the preschool to like then meet him to then like tell everyone that like I actually did know the name of my own friend. It's not even embarrassing for me. It's just the random story my parents tell everyone. But then he, got drafted first overall or second overall for the Jets. So he was the more famous friend.
I was literally about to make a joke, and I was literally about to say, and that guy grew up to be DeBrickashaw Ferguson.
Yeah, no, it's literally him. It was DeBrickashaw Ferguson.
It's literally him.
Yeah. We were friends
guy.
When we were 4, and I never saw him again when I turned 5. But
Yeah. Yeah, he is 40. Look at that.
Yeah.
So,
we were in preschool together.
Look at that, DeBrickashaw Ferguson. I mean, who else has that name?
Correct. Exactly. So that's why it's said all the time now, because everyone knows the name, and I would just be like, "Yeah, told you so."
You'd think, okay, maybe there's 2 other DeBrickashaws in the world.
There might be 0. I would guess there could just be 0.
Maybe his son. That's it.
Yeah, maybe.
He cursed his own son with that name as well. All right, if you had an extra hour every day that had to be allocated to one specific purpose besides sleep, how would you use it?
Listen to a new album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You can listen to 2 albums nowadays, given how short they are.
True.
It's crazy how short these CDs. No one's talking about CDs.
Compact discs.
Are you a hunter or a gatherer? I don't know what that even means.
Yeah. I can't really answer that because I guess I would say hunter for the way someone would describe the question, but not really a real question, I feel.
There's some really bad questions here. I'm not asking you. If you were a tree, no. We end the podcast the same way, with a random question. Same way every time, with a random question from the random question generator. Are you ready?
Ready.
Drum roll. Oh, this is a perfect poker person question. Do you consider yourself lucky?
Yeah, of course I'm lucky. Anyone that is able to answer and say they are unlucky means they are lucky. Like, there is so much luck of just where you're born, getting to eat, getting to survive. The human brain is so good at forgetting all the good things we have. But like, if you take a step back and look at the world, like, almost everyone is lucky. Like 99.9% of people that you'll interact with are like truly lucky. And I think it's important to like always take stock and remember that.
Right, just being born is
correct.
Winning the lottery.
Absolutely.
That's a healthy mindset and mentality, and something I come to expect from Scott Seiver, your 2024 World Series of Poker Player of the Year. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing.
Of course, Julio. Thanks for having me.
That's it. That is the show. Thank you once again to Scott for the time. You can follow him on Twitter or X at Scott_Seiver, and you can follow us at Card Player Media. Make sure you check out cardplayer.com for the latest poker news, interviews, and player results. And you can check out the free poker school to improve your game, or even check your math with the Card Player Poker Odds Calculator. And of course, don't miss a free digital copy of Card Player magazine every 2 weeks when you sign up for the cardplayer.com newsletter. Until next time, thank you for listening.